I was completely shocked when I heard the unexpected news. Jerry, my husband, sold the house I had inherited from my father for $700,000. He delivered this revelation with an oddly cheerful tone over a phone call from the hospital. As if that wasn't enough to leave me stunned, he went on to announce that he planned to go on a trip with his mistress. This entire situation felt surreal, like a whirlwind of madness I could barely process. I couldn't understand why Jerry would sell a house with so much sentimental value and then, without hesitation, share his plans to leave with another woman. The shock of it all intensified as he revealed he was also planning to abandon his family, our family, including our 9-year-old daughter, Maria. His casual attitude about leaving her behind was especially distressing. Jerry even expressed that Maria had been getting on his nerves, saying she was acting high and mighty, as if she were a stranger instead of his own daughter. His cold, almost dismissive remarks about Maria cut deep, filling me with both rage and heartbreak. As I absorbed this crushing news, I felt a mix of anger and disbelief rising inside me. It was hard to believe that the man I once loved could behave so callously. My name is Anna Kendrick. I'm 39, a full-time homemaker, and for years, I've been married to Jerry. But our marriage has been far from harmonious for some time now. We've had our share of marital discord, and for about a year, I've harbored suspicions about his infidelity. There was no direct evidence, but the signs were hard to ignore. His frequent visits to bars after work, the faint smell of unfamiliar perfumes on him, and even expensive gifts that clearly weren't meant for me. Despite all these signs, I was too afraid to confront him or demand the truth. I've felt stuck, unable to take action, and now this revelation about the house and his mistress has brought all my fears crashing down. Thinking back on our relationship, I remember the man I fell in love with over a decade ago. Jerry was kind, sincere, and genuinely caring back then. We shared a beautiful beginning, and our marriage felt like a dream come true. However, everything changed after Maria was born. Parenthood came with its own set of challenges, and as a stay-at-home mom, I relied on Jerry's support. In the early days, he was attentive, helping with baths and meals for our daughter, but gradually his involvement faded. He became more distant, his outings more frequent, and I was left to shoulder the responsibility of raising Maria alone. Looking back, I wonder how we arrived at this place. A marriage that once felt solid and full of promise now crumbling under the weight of infidelity, neglect, and betrayal. The news of Jerry selling my father's house and abandoning us for his mistress has left me feeling lost and desperate. In the midst of this emotional storm, I can't help but feel a powerful urge to take control, to somehow stop him from destroying everything I held dear. At first, when I asked Jerry to help with parenting, he was supportive, but gradually, it turned into a daily routine and his attitude changed. He started resenting the responsibility, often reminding me that it's your job as a stay-at-home mom to handle parenting. His words were painful, especially when he complained about having to help after a long day at work, as if our daughter, Maria, wasn't his responsibility too. Over time, Jerry pulled back entirely, leaving me alone to handle Maria's tantrums and our nightly routines, while he retreated to the bedroom, avoiding the parenting he once shared. Even on weekends, when Maria eagerly asked him to play, Jerry would dismiss her with, "Playing is your mom's job. I'm busy." It was heartbreaking to see him brush her off, and it only got worse when he scolded her for showing emotions or blamed me for how she behaved. Maria and I found comfort in each other, spending time playing and drawing together, just the two of us. There were moments when I wished for a break, time for myself to read a book or watch a movie, but with Jerry checked out and Maria's needs constant, there was little room for my own interests. Meanwhile, Jerry enjoyed his hobbies, like racing, without a second thought. I felt trapped. His income kept us afloat, but I had no voice to ask for more balance. This pattern went on for 9 long years, and it became clear that the Jerry I once knew, kind, caring, and attentive, was long gone. Instead, I lived with a man who not only avoided parenting but spoke to me harshly, as if my work at home meant nothing. Despite my frustration, I focused on Maria, knowing she deserved stability, even in a divided household. Her bright spirit was a gift. She was honest, cheerful, and somehow untroubled by the tension around her. One afternoon, as we sat drawing together, she surprised me with a compliment, saying I was talented and should consider drawing as a job. Her kindness lifted my spirits, reminding me that someone in this house noticed my efforts and cared. Maria's positivity became my anchor. She thrived in school, with friends and teachers who adored her, and her compliments about my art gave me a quiet confidence I hadn't felt in years. As long as she could smile, I felt a flicker of hope and resilience in facing our difficult life. That night, however, things took another familiar turn when Jerry stumbled home, clearly drunk. His drinking had been growing worse, and every time he came home in that state, my concern deepened. Sighing, I went through the routine of helping him, peeling off his jacket and getting him settled, when something unexpected happened. As I removed his jacket, a piece of paper slipped from his pocket. Usually, that pocket only held his keys, but tonight, it contained a receipt from a motel. My heart sank as I looked at it, realizing this was undeniable evidence of my suspicions that he had been unfaithful. For so long, I had pushed those doubts aside, afraid to face them head-on, but now, there it was, in my hand, undeniable and impossible to ignore. I quietly tucked the receipt away, hiding my shock and turmoil as best I could. That night, as I lay awake, the weight of our fractured marriage felt heavier than ever, and I began to question what I could, or should, do next. The next morning, as I mulled over the discovery of Jerry's infidelity, I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and uncertainty about what to do. With the receipt still tucked away, I knew I needed to confront him, to bring this hidden truth out into the open. However, Jerry left the house early, still groggy from the previous night, and I was left alone with my thoughts once Maria had gone to school. I kept trying to focus on my regular chores, but my mind kept circling back to the questions and hurt I now carried. Just as I was lost in thought, my phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. I hesitated, feeling a strange sense of dread, and answered, only to hear a voice from General Hospital on the other end. Jerry had been rushed to the hospital and was undergoing emergency surgery due to a severe kidney problem. The doctor explained that his kidneys were failing, and without a transplant, he might not survive. I was stunned. Despite the hurt he'd caused, I didn't want him to die. My mind spun as the doctor explained the details of his condition and the urgency of finding a compatible donor. In the days that followed, Jerry's health took center stage in my life. It was soon revealed that I was the best match for a kidney donation, an unlikely and ironic twist, considering our troubled relationship. He had no siblings, and his elderly parents were in no shape to donate. Despite my own mixed emotions about him and my reservations about the surgery, I recognized that Jerry's life depended on this decision. I felt torn, but the thought of potentially saving him outweighed my hesitations. When I explained the situation to Maria, she listened carefully. She surprised me with her understanding, encouraging me to go ahead with the surgery if it could help her father. Her maturity and compassion filled me with courage, and I promised her that everything would be okay. Arrangements were made for her to stay with Jerry's parents during my hospital stay, which provided a small comfort in an otherwise overwhelming situation. A week later, after completing a series of health checks and signing the necessary consent forms, I prepared for the transplant surgery. As I lay on the hospital bed, I was filled with a blend of fear and hope, wondering what this surgery would mean for our future and if it could somehow bridge the distance that had grown between us over the years. The surgery itself went smoothly, quicker than I had anticipated. As I woke up, groggy from the anesthesia, I was told that the transplant had been successful. I felt an immense sense of relief, knowing that I had done everything I could to give Jerry a second chance. It was a strange feeling, lying there in the recovery room, uncertain about what the future held but filled with a quiet sense of resolve. Maria visited me a few days later, her warm smile lifting my spirits. She expressed how proud she was of me and how much she missed me, reminding me why I had made this difficult choice. For now, I could only hope that this experience would bring about some change, both in Jerry and in our family. Whether or not it led to a fresh start, I knew I'd given him, and us, a new chance, one built on forgiveness, resilience, and the strength that Maria's love had inspired in me. I spent about a week in the hospital, while Jerry's recovery took slightly longer, around 11 days. Thankfully, both of us healed without complications, and everything seemed to be progressing smoothly. Just before I was set to be discharged, I received a call that would shake me to my core. Answering the phone, I heard Jerry's voice, the man I had just saved by donating my kidney. I expected words of gratitude, a moment of kindness or acknowledgement of what I had done for him. Instead, his tone was oddly cheerful as he skipped over any mention of the surgery and went straight to something shocking. Jerry casually announced that he had sold our house for $700,000 and was planning to take a trip with his mistress. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Our house, an inheritance from my father, filled with memories and sentimental value, had been sold without a thought. His revelation about having a mistress and the careless way he mentioned leaving our daughter, Maria, behind stunned me even further. I was lost for words, barely able to comprehend his audacity. Desperate to understand his intentions, I asked him about Maria's well-being, hoping he would show some sense of responsibility. But Jerry dismissed my concerns without a hint of remorse. He said he didn't care about her and intended to leave her behind as he chased his new life. Hearing those callous words left me furious and heartbroken. I realized I couldn't just stand by. I had to do something to protect our home and our daughter. Before I could say anything more, Jerry abruptly ended the call, leaving me overwhelmed and desperate to act. The shock of his betrayal took such a toll on me that my hospital stay was extended as I struggled to process everything. Lying in that hospital bed, I couldn't stop thinking about what I should do next. Without our home, where would Maria and I go? I felt powerless and trapped, unable to stop Jerry's reckless decisions from within those hospital walls. My first instinct was to reach out to Maria. I called my in-laws' house, where she was staying, and anxiously waited for her to pick up. When she answered, I asked how she was feeling and if she was okay. I gently told her the difficult news, that her father had sold our home. I was worried about how she would take it, fearing she'd feel abandoned or confused by her father's actions. But Maria surprised me. She responded calmly, reassuring me that she had already taken care of things. Confused and intrigued, I listened as she explained that Dad had told her about his plan to sell the house and involve his mistress in the process. She had managed to handle the unsettling news with surprising maturity, even expressing gratitude that I was concerned about her. Her strength and composure filled me with a mixture of pride and amazement. Maria's calm words were a comfort to me during one of the most distressing times of my life. Her resilience in the face of her father's choices showed me that, despite everything, she was managing to stay grounded. Though our lives had been turned upside down, Maria's maturity gave me hope. Knowing that she could find strength amid the turmoil inspired me to face whatever was coming next with renewed resolve. After allowing myself a bit of rest and peace, my curiosity still lingered about what Jerry and his mistress were up to. I reminded myself of the importance of focusing on recovery and eventually drifted into sleep. 6 days later, feeling somewhat restored, I was discharged from the hospital and made my way to my in-laws' house. Maria greeted me with joy, and my mother-in-law welcomed me back with a warm smile, clearly relieved to see me. But my father-in-law's expression was grim. He apologized sincerely for Jerry's actions, and it pained me to see how deeply he felt about his son's behavior. Despite their apology, I took some responsibility, admitting that perhaps I should have spoken up sooner about our issues. As we spoke, my in-laws revealed they had no intention of letting Jerry get away with his reckless choices, which filled me with both relief and curiosity about what that would mean. Maria and I then headed home, but on the way, we stumbled upon an unexpected scene outside a realtor's office. There stood Jerry, looking disheveled and visibly stressed, in sweatpants and unkempt hair. Beside him was a woman, presumably his mistress, who looked equally frazzled in a short skirt, missing a shoe, and a bare face showing her frustration. They were in the middle of a heated argument about the sale of the house, which had apparently fallen through, leaving their plans in shambles. Seeing this chaotic scene unfold in public added a new layer of disbelief to everything I was already feeling. Jerry stomped his feet in anger while the woman screeched, drawing surprised stares from people passing by. Shocked but determined to get answers, Maria and I approached them. As soon as we questioned Jerry, both he and the woman gasped, clearly not expecting us to show up at that moment. Jerry immediately turned the blame toward me, accusing me of interfering with the house sale and somehow talking the buyer out of the deal. Ignoring their baseless accusations, I instinctively shielded Maria behind me, trying to keep her away from the drama. The realtor, who had been watching the scene unfold with growing confusion, looked shocked to learn that I was Jerry's wife. The sales cancellation had disrupted their plans, and as Jerry pointed to his mistress, he muttered something about debts he still owed because of the money he had spent on her. It became painfully clear to me then, Jerry had intended to sell the house, not only to settle debts he had accrued for his mistress, but also to secure a new place for the two of them. The realization hit me hard. He knew this house was a precious inheritance from my father, yet he had been ready to disregard Maria and me for his own selfish desires. Anger surged through me as I confronted him, struggling to process how he could be so brazen. Even in this critical moment, Jerry hurled insults my way, showing no remorse. I told him, firmly, that he had no right to try to sell the house without discussing it with me. The house was legally mine, and his attempt to dispose of it without my consent was both disrespectful and unlawful. Furious, I demanded to know if he had gone as far as forging documents to make the sale happen. The audacity of his betrayal was almost too much to bear, and I felt a wave of resolve rise within me to protect what was rightfully mine. Confronting Jerry there, in front of the realtor and his mistress, was a moment of clarity. I knew I couldn't let him trample over my rights and my family's future. This house was more than just property. It was a piece of my father's legacy, and it symbolized the life I was determined to rebuild for Maria and myself. Standing up to him, I felt a newfound strength, a resolve to guard our future from his reckless decisions, no matter what it took. I revealed the shocking twist to Jerry. He had been bad-mouthing the supposed buyers of the house, unaware they were his own parents. The truth had come to light through Maria, who had spoken to her grandparents about Jerry's deceitful actions. Outraged by their son's behavior and wanting to protect both me and their beloved granddaughter, my in-laws had decided to step in to save the house. Maria, with confidence and maturity, explained that her grandparents valued the house's sentimental importance and disapproved of Jerry's reckless plan to sell it. To block him, they had cleverly posed as potential buyers, ensuring the house would remain in the family. Seeing his plan fall apart, Jerry, desperate and defeated, let out a bitter laugh and unleashed a string of insults at Maria and his parents. But Maria stood strong, unbothered by his angry words. In response, I reached into my bag, pulled out a piece of paper, and thrust it under Jerry's nose, prepared to confront him with the truth. The paper was our divorce petition. Taking a steady breath, I said firmly, "I want a divorce." Instead of grasping the weight of the moment, Jerry scoffed, dismissing me with arrogant disbelief, suggesting I couldn't possibly manage without him. His smugness only fueled my determination to shatter his illusions. Calmly, I informed him that I was prepared. "You don't need to worry about me," I said. "I'm going to receive a lifetime gift from your parents." My words left Jerry and his mistress visibly confused. I went on to explain that my in-laws, given their declining health, wished to pass a portion of their assets on to me now, while they still could. I had initially suggested that this inheritance go to Jerry, but they insisted on giving it to me instead. To them, I was the one who had brought them joy through Maria, and they couldn't overlook Jerry's lack of gratitude, even after I'd saved his life. Grateful for their generosity, I accepted the lifetime gift, and Jerry turned pale with shock. Infuriated, he tried to argue that it was unfair and threatened to take the matter to court. I reminded him calmly that his own reckless spending had put him in this position, and his parents' decision was well within their rights. As he seethed, I questioned whether he even had the financial means to go to court, hinting at the consequences his betrayals had brought upon him. Then, closing the gap between us, I delivered one final blow. "Every penny you owe for emotional damages and child support will be pursued," I said, my voice firm. "And if you can't pay, I'll chase you to the ends of the earth to collect." Jerry, now desperate and shaken, stammered for forgiveness, but I met his pleas with an unwavering glare. With calm but resolute words, I declared, "This is the end." There was no going back, and he could see it in my eyes. For the first time, he truly grasped the depth of his actions and the consequences he could no longer escape. I was determined to hold Jerry accountable for every insult and wrong he had thrown at Maria and me. As he and his mistress finally stormed off, yelling and defeated, the realtor, who had witnessed the entire scene, expressed relief and thanked me for resolving the chaotic situation. I apologized for any inconvenience caused and took Maria's hand as we headed home, ready to start fresh. As we walked, she looked up at me, grateful for standing up for her. Seeing the smile on her face, I silently vowed to protect her no matter what lay ahead. The divorce from Jerry proceeded smoothly, marking the official end of a painful chapter. Surprisingly, the process felt almost anticlimactic, and I couldn't help but wonder why I had endured everything for so long. It became clear just how much Jerry had invested in his reckless lifestyle, spending a significant amount of money on his affair and eventually borrowing to cover his debts. His mistress, too, abandoned him, unwilling to stick by someone so financially troubled. Soon after, misfortune continued to close in on him. Due to material shortages and declining sales, his company had to downsize, and Jerry, working in the factory, was among the first to be laid off. It's hard to believe he was chosen randomly. More likely, his poor attitude and lack of performance were contributing factors. Now, unemployed and struggling, he's scraping by with part-time jobs, showing little motivation to find stable work. His life has become a lonely and difficult existence, having lost his job, his lover, and his family. While I might have felt sympathy once, his choices and disrespect toward me erased that sentiment long ago. Even after I had donated a kidney to him, he had mocked and betrayed me. It seemed that karma had finally caught up to him, and his energy would be best spent paying off his debts. As for me, I decided to move forward with purpose. Inspired by Maria's compliment about my art, I began taking on illustration work, using the assets my in-laws had entrusted to me. My initial clients praised my attention to detail and skill, which filled me with pride and gave me a renewed sense of purpose. My goal is to build a strong client base and work steadily to create a brighter future for Maria and myself. With each passing day, I feel more hopeful. The path ahead is one I'm ready to walk, with Maria by my side and a new chapter filled with possibility and strength.